What is a job that is deemed safe, but in reality very dangerous? Teaching. The mind of a bored 12-year-old in a science classroom of 30 plus students is terrifying, especially on a day that involves fire or heat. I recently volunteered to teach a sport clinic at school a friend of mine teaches at, and I was shocked to see how much things have changed since I was attending school. It was like the inmates running the asylum. There are days that don't involve fire. Sadly, yes. The biggest disappointment of my chemistry education was bomb calorimeters. I'll let you wonder about that one. I boiled water with a flaming walnut in science class one time. I think we were doing something with measuring calories. This was in 93, 94, so it's been a long time. My group had a huge piece of walnut, so I set it on fire and boiled all the water out of a test tube. Various lab workers. The only reason there are very few lab-related deaths is because people that work in the lab are very smart and know how to take care, and there are very few lab workers. It only takes one unbalanced centrifuge to blow up entire room. It's not just the being smart aspect, it's the calmness when something does go wrong. At some point there will be a fire of some sort in a chemistry lab. It's fairly unavoidable when using certain materials. Knowing how to deal with it safely can be as simple as covering a flaming beaker with a watch glass or just letting it burn itself out in a fume hood. On the other hand, a panicking person might try to move it to the sink or try to put it out, which are far more dangerous options. Wouldn't call it very dangerous, but I think that cutting people's hair is harder and more dangerous than it might seem. You can't not cut yourself occasionally, and the constant washing and touching hair products can't be good for the skin on your hands. I would say harmful instead of dangerous. Dangerous kinda feels like it implies accidents, while harmful is an overtime effect, which definitely applies to being a hairdresser. Oh, I see your point. Not a native English speaker, so the nuance eluded me. Thanks for the clarification. Then again, the last time I got a haircut, the hairdresser accidentally cut his own finger pretty deep with the scissors, so. Garbage collectors. That job has such high death rates because chemical explosions and stuff like that can happen when the trash is mixed. If you look on YouTube, there's tons of videos of the back of the trucks just catching on fire and exploding. Waste and recycling jobs have a fatality rate 16 times higher than the industry average, meaning you're 16 times less likely to die in a factory operating heavy machinery. This just happened when my wife was driving the other day. The driver dumped everything, and the FD was putting it out. That number sounds skewed by the ratio of garbage collectors to factory workers. People usually underestimate how many injuries a musician can get. Maybe get a blister on your little finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb. Arthritis and carpal tunnel are common for musicians. Obviously they aren't as bad as most workplace hazards we're discussing here, but it's worse than blisters, I guess. Sure, but very rarely are they that serious. Musician injuries are usually just arthritis, carpal tunnel, things of that nature. I poked my finger with a banjo string, and it got infected. Brutal. Yeah, right, and you should say it. Seemingly benign welding jobs, where you have a face mask and protective clothing. But what many people neglect is the sound of the welding itself is extremely harmful to your hearing. Something about the sound frequency. Learned this from a safety inspector once, and was really surprised by it. What? So should I use earplugs for MIG welding? X-ray technician. Are looking into it. The requirements were to visit the dentist and doctor to make sure your teeth bones are in good condition and get insurance before taking the course. Possibly developing cancer from exposure to radiation doesn't seem so great after all. That's why they leave the room before they take the X-ray. Attorney. Very high suicide rates. Danger from clients and others in certain fields like criminal defense. Came here to say dentistry for the same reason, but that might be a myth. For the suicide part, not the rest. Unless you're Matthew Perry. Why is suicide common in dentistry? Call center job, especially night shift. Emotionally exhausting, plus the potential of being killed in a night crime like theft is high. The only call center I've ever worked at wasn't open to the public and never had cash on hand. Hire robber is an issue for one of these places. Doctor, 2 doctors in West Bengal India were beaten up by an angry mob because they couldn't save an 85-year-old man. One of the doctors received deep injuries on his skull. The government didn't take any action on the attackers. I guess working in the sewage plant is pretty dangerous. In those brown pools, neither you float nor could you swim, also they don't empty those often. If you wanna get rid of a corpse, 10 would recommend. Those people that have to climb to the top of those red blinky things that direct airplanes have no idea what they're called. My dad told me about them, and I honestly think that is the scariest job out there. I've heard the 2 most dangerous jobs in Australia are school principal and maternity ward nurse. It's generally to do with emotional parents and custody disputes. Certified nursing assistant is not as safe as people think it is. All I'm saying is it takes that one incident. Restaurant chef. Any place that handles raw meat and has a high incidence rate of open wounds is at massive risk of sepsis. Air traffic controller. If you slack off or mess up, then you have the potential to kill hundreds of people in a split second. Logging. People think, oh, you're just driving a big machine around grabbing logs, but it has the highest death rate of any job. Banking. You type one number wrongly, and your name will be in papers and you will lose your job and you can have legal consequences. Anything that requires working in the neighborhoods around me, that's putting your life at risk, as they are war zones. The traffic sign holder on construction jobs. All it takes is one person not paying attention. Touring case, you can get stuck and nobody in your tour will know how to get out or how to get you out. Doctors. They crash cars and get addicted to drugs at very high rates. Farming. Both the farm machinery and large animals can be quite dangerous. I think I read that more garbage men die on the job than police officers. Umpiring. Kid in Wa got beat up by a spectator a few months ago. Fishing. It's got like a 20% higher death rate than any other job. Window washing, cause one wrong move, and hey, that's tough. Doctors. They come in contact with diseases daily. Teacher. Oh wait, I'm not in or from America.